Yo, it's the BeBall Jones podcast coming back another time for another episode. It's another good week for us, Nelson. How you doing, man?
I'm good, bro. How about you, man?
I'm all right, man. Just trying to get through this time we in right now, man.
Man,
Can't complain though, man. Everything's good, man. So let's get into this topic, brother. I think this is an interesting one to get
let's
into.
do it. I'm
So
ready.
super teams. This is kind of a hot button topic right now. This is kind of a touchy thing for some people. But we're going to get into some super team talk. When you think about super teams, you're thinking about some of the most decorated and most talented and best teams that we have ever seen assembled in the history of the NBA, you know. And looking on social media, I know you have you on Facebook. I'm on Twitter a little bit more than you. Well, you might be on Twitter more than me, or even. I'm on IG, scrolling through the comments and everything. We see people talk about super team this and super team that. These super teams are terrible. These super teams are great. And certain teams I look at, I don't think they're a super team, man. It's just like, I don't see how that's a super team. Other teams, they're like, oh, it's not a super team because it is. So we're going to do what we can and justify our ends of a super team. So we're going to put part of the discussion to rest, at least for us. I ain't going to say the whole basketball community listen to us, but the 5 people that do listen to us, they're going to understand. They're going to understand where we come from and everything. So first off, man, I want to get from your perspective and your Nelson Dictionary of basketball terminology. What is a super team? How would you define a super team?
Oh well, in the Nielsen Webster's dictionary, uh, super team. I kind of classify super teams as three superstar players all in their prime on the same team. I consider that super teams. So like, let me clarify. So like, when I say superstar, I mean superstar. I don't mean all star. Because if we say all stars, then the Atlanta Hawks a couple years ago with Al Horford, Jeff Teague, DeMar Carroll, Kyle Korver, and Paul Millsap was a super team. Because remember, they had 4 out of 5 starters make the All Star team in the East,
Yep.
and I don't think nobody considering them a super team.
I hope not.
So I
No.
hope not. But if you got 3 superstars, so that means top players in the league on the same team at the same time and in their prime, I consider that a super team. So like just so when I say in their prime, I give you example that like I don't know if y'all remember how far back to Charles Barkley joining the Houston Rockets with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. But like none of those guys were in their prime. And I feel like that was just like a last minute meetup, like we friends, like, let's get together, try to make something happen, try to win. But none of them was in their prime. So
Mhm.
I don't consider that a super team. Like if all of them was in their 20s to 30s at the time, to like at 25, 26 range, then yeah, that team probably go crazy. But other than that, I feel like if you don't have 3 of the top players in the league on the same team, I don't consider that a super team. And they got to be in their prime, like I said. Um, so that's pretty much my dictionary definition of it when you talking about super teams. So like, you go ahead, give me your B-Ball Jones definition of it.
Mine's not too far from yours, man. I define it as basically being built versus bought. So
Mm,
you look at OKC team when they first got KD, Russ, and James Harden together. That
mm,
team was built up. They were young pups. So he was nasty. Now Russ was nasty, Harden was nasty. But like you said, they weren't in their prime. So now if you had that team develop and go together and they were prime like they are right now, built together, I still won't consider them super team because they were built. They basically drafted all 3 of those guys, different years, but they drafted those guys, built them up, and got them to their prime when they balling out together. Versus
mm,
other teams where they paid for their players to come in. So you look at how currently the Nets are constructed. KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. None of those guys were drafted by the Nets, and none of those guys came in um, not in their prime or as a superstar. So it's players that come together that are basically built in their prime or in that frame period of their prime that come together. So that's how I define a super
mm.
team. Like you said, it has to be at least 3 superstar players, not just all star. but 3 superstar players, or at least top 5 to 10 in their position, that come in free agency or request a trade to come onto another team. And so with my definition, I feel like that eliminates a lot of people, a lot of teams from being a super team, because a super team has been labeled as a certain way, and I don't think that's necessarily a good or bad thing. It just depends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like a super team can be great. This is my opinion, you know. So looking at how the super team is I basically they're just out there success if it's good or bad. So like if the Warriors came together and they were a super team and they lost, that's not really a good or bad thing for the league. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you lost. But if they won, then it's a good thing for the league, because now you have so many people from the outside game looking in, and it's like, oh man, this you got Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson playing together. So you got a lot more fans drawn in looking at the game and to see if they're winning or losing. If they're losing, it's like I'm not gonna tune in for that because it's not good basketball. But obviously, are they destroying everybody? Dang, that's fun to watch. Or they just won 20 games in a row. Oh, when they gonna lose? Oh, they won 30. Let's see. Now you start getting more interest in some people who normally wouldn't watch the game. So I feel like if a super team, quote unquote, is winning, that's great for the game because you're getting attention. If they're losing, then it's just like, oh, that's trash. You know what I mean? It's just like it's not really doing anybody any justice by them. You spending all this money to lose, and it's just like it's not really helping or hurting. It's just keeping where it's at. But if they're winning, then it's a huge benefit. So how do you feel about that?
I kind of see what you mean by that, but like, what so do I feel like? I feel like when we talk about super teams and how good it is for the league, how good or bad it is, I feel like it's good for the league or fans at least to have somebody to hate, even if like it turns into something negative. Like that's still like viewers, still fans. So like I feel like a lot of people hated the Warriors when KD joined. A lot of people hated them. But it's crazy because I feel like before KD went to the Warriors, I feel like a lot of people liked the Warriors. I feel like still got a lot of love. I feel like a lot of people didn't like Draymond, but it was kind of like it was still some people that was like, I like Draymond, old school type player, this and this and
Mm-hmm.
this. Like at the time of that 2016, 2015 run, no 2015, 2016 run, I feel like people loved the Warriors. And then KD joined, and it was like, oh no, this the enemy now. Like,
Yeah.
hey, how we gonna root for this? They got 4 stars on one team, 3 of them probably the best shooters. Got 3 of the best shooters of all time on their team, and a great defender. It was like I feel like people looked at them as the enemies ever since KD went, and so. But at the same time, like I said, I just feel like it's good for the league to have somebody to hate, like for fans to have somebody to dislike. Like back in the Magic Bird days, you either love Magic or you hated Magic. You either love Bird or you hated Bird.
Yep.
And then but that's good for the league though. Like to have people opposing a team or like loving one team and hating another team, that still creates fandom and rivalries and stuff. So I feel like the super team thing is like our version of that. Like I feel like the Lakers and the Celtics, like by your definition, I guess they're not super teams because, like you said, they was homegrown. So I guess by that definition, they're not. But in my definition of them having 3 of the top players in the league, they were, but they was the only 2. So them
Mm-hmm.
competing against each other created that fandom, like people in the league, like okay, it's us versus them type stuff. So when the Warriors formed with KD or fully formed and added KD, that gave the league somebody to hate. KD was considered a snake and stuff like that. So it was everybody versus the Warriors at that point.
Yeah.
And so, but that kind of started the whole domino effect of super team. Like it was an arms race at that point. Like we all got to catch up to the Warriors. Like they so good and so talented. It's like none, as we are right now, none of us are competing at the time that they're having in 2017.
Yeah.
it was like the rest of the league looked at them like, well, this is the new standard because as we stand, nobody's competing with them. And then they ran through the playoffs, swept almost everybody in the playoffs, so it became abundantly clear, like, okay, like they are obviously above everybody else right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that can be good for the league. I think the first year of the Warriors be super team, I feel like that was like bad at the time. Like, cause like I said, there was no competition. It was like they running through the league. I feel like that was kind of bad because but having multiple super teams and people to hate and root against and root for, I feel like that can be good. So like what we now have now with the Lakers and the Nets, if we consider them super teams, I guess we'll get into that a little later. But what we have now, where we got teams where we can look at and be like us versus them, who gonna win? Even if you don't root for neither one of those teams, it's like who's gonna win out of these two? These two monsters on opposite sides of the country. Eventually, they gonna meet for those finals.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like those two things are good for the league. Having two, 3, 4 teams that might, even if we feel like the rest of the league irrelevant, having a couple teams where it's like, man, it's gonna be out of them. Like, who gonna do it? I can't wait for them to meet. Like, remember how we was feeling in the bubble when the Lakers and the Clippers was like set to meet in the Western Conference Finals in the bubble, and that's all we was waiting on. We was like, Lakers, Clippers, Western Conference Finals, whoever win, go win the championship.
Yeah.
It's like we was all waiting on that, and then the Clippers got clipped and didn't make it. And I feel like that hurt the league. Don't you feel like that hurt the league that they didn't make it to the Western Conference Finals?
Of course.
Like, them ratings probably would have been stupid if they did. Kawhi versus LeBron, AD and Paul George. Like, I feel like them not making it to the Western Conference Finals hurt the league. So the super team thing, it give it and it take it away. Like, it's good to have those teams ready to compete and having somebody to root for, root against. And it's like you have to pick a side type thing. That's good. But like just having the one team at the top and everybody trying to knock them off, I feel like that's not good for the league, really. So that's just my thing about it. If we're gonna have super teams, we need multiple super teams. I guess is what I'm trying to say. We can't have one and then everybody looking at them like, well, they got it for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
I feel like that's bad. But if we can get multiple where it's like who gonna win out of so and so and so and so, that's pretty good for the league. So how you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that part of you saying how having multiple super teams is good. But 'cause I kind of think about this with the women's UConn team, right? So
Right.
they was destroying everybody. They went through I think 3 seasons without losing the game, and they was kicking everybody. But it's just like, let's see how many UConn gonna win this year. Let's see how bad they're gonna beat this team this year. And they got a lot of attention brought to them after they started losing a couple games, which was like that was superhero level of basketball. Like they won 3 in a row and won, what was it, 80 something in a row, I think. So it's just
Yeah, it was something crazy like that.
like we haven't seen that since like the 70s with the UCLA Bruins back when John Wooden and Bill Walton and Kareem were there, or Lou Alcindor at the time. So that level of dominance can be good, but I think that's gonna be hard to see in a pro level because like you can see a lot more transaction stuff going on, especially nowadays. So that kind of eliminates that possibly happening. But I think your other point where you're saying having multiple super teams is good is a lot better than that one dominant team. It's very true, and I completely agree with that. But I think at the same time, it kind of gets to a point to where like back in the days with the 80s, that was a lot more possible because like I said before, they built those teams up. So you had drafted Bird, you drafted Parrish, you drafted McHale. You had those guys locked in for 10 years just because players weren't moving around like that. So once you had a good team, you were good. All you had to do was re-sign enough key pieces and you were good. You had the arguably 2 best players between Bird and Magic. Then you had Kareem. Then you had McHale. Then you had so and so and so and so. All you had to do was keep the right pieces around those core pieces, and you were set for the next 10 years. All you needed at that point was health and luck. So I think in the 80s it's a little bit different, and you don't have teams and players moving around as much. Versus nowadays, where you can have the Cavs winning championship one year, LeBron leaves, lottery pick that fast. Or first round, not even lottery, first round pick. Like that wasn't happening back in the 80s and 90s. Not that quick. Or you can flip it the other way. You're a first round pick, NBA championship next year. Like, who does that? Like, you can't do that. I don't think in any other league you can do that. Not football, not baseball. Definitely can't do that in college, not in a year. So I think that adds a level of parity to the league when you have those two prominent teams, like you said, going back and forth. But I think today it's hard to have that, especially for a long time. And when you have like, all my favorite players, Luka, my favorite player is Trae Young, my favorite player is Giannis, my favorite player is Kawhi, CP, Dame, it's not going to be as fun because my favorite player doesn't have a shot. I'm just saying
He
here,
irrelevant.
he's irrelevant at this point. So I think if we kind of get back to the point where we were before the Nets gang banged and just got Harden, made it unfair, where it was like the duo came back, when it was like the 1-2 punch, I think that would add a little bit more flavor to the game nowadays. Because now you'll have a realistic 6 teams that have a shot now. It's like, oh snap, it just depends on which duo hitting tonight. Do you want to go with Kyrie and KD, or do you want to go with LeBron and AD? Or do you want to go with such and such and such and such? Do you want to go with him over there and then over there? And it's now become a matchup game where, well, they got the wing power over there with the Clippers between Kawhi and PG. Then you got the post presence over here with Philly. Depending on what they do with Ben Simmons, you got Ben Simmons and Joel now. So it's like now it's about matchups, and it's just fun to see those matchups collide. So I think that plays a role in like the parity of it and making it a little bit more exciting. But now if you have every team like kind of good, then it's not as fun. So it's like, yeah, everybody's even, but now it's even to a point where it's not as good as basketball. So if it's still competitive to where it's like you watching high level basketball, then it'll be fun. So if they can have it to where it's, I'll say 4 super teams to where it's not just 1 and 2, then it'll be a little bit more fun because now you have a chance to see your favorite players still win. Because it's not about teams anymore, it's really about players. So if you got your favorite players having a shot, then it's different. But then if you like, dang, my favorite player, Giannis, but he ain't got a shot to win the championship because he ain't on a super team. Like he loyal. My guy Dame, he ain't got a shot because he ain't finna go anywhere. So you got to root for either them coming to a small market team and them possibly coming out with enough money to get 2 or 3 other superstars, or you just hope that by some crazy chance they get traded. So it's just like having a super team of that extent is not as fun nowadays because everybody's not finna ship, and your favorite player is probably not finna have a chance to win. He's gonna be not sorry, but he's not gonna be winning for the first 7 years, 8 years. If it's 10, it's like, dang, bro, that's all I can do. So by the time he finally wants to leave or can leave, he's not in his prime anymore. Like you said with the old Charles Barkley thing. So I think super teams can be good, but depending on how it works, by having 4 or 5 super teams would make it a little bit more interesting rather than just 2. Because now it's like, oh snap! Now you got the Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, and the I don't know, some of the Mavs, the Nets. No, I was thinking of like Western Conference. So it's like you have 4 in the West, and you got 2 or 3 teams in the East. Now you kind of fighting. It's like, oh, I can't wait to see that matchup. Oh, I can't wait to see that matchup too. Oh, I can't wait to see, rather than just you got to wait 4 times a year for the Celtics and Lakers to play. You got to wait 4 times a year to see the Warriors and Cavs play back in the day. 4 times a year to see the Nets and Lakers play now. So it's like you got to wait for 4 games all year to watch. Versus now, if you have 4 teams, that easily doubles or triples the number of games you start to see. So I think if we can have it dispersed a little bit more, I don't want to say even because I'm not with that, but it's like to where it's a little bit more parity to it rather than just knowing A and B are going to get there. What about A, B, C, and D? Oh, now it's a little bit more interesting because you don't know for sure. So I think that will make the game a little bit more interesting, and having super teams spread out a little bit more will add something to it. So I kind of jumped the gun on this a little bit, man. So let's break down who are and who are not or were not the super teams that we kind of come to see in there. So before we get in there, you got
Mm.
anything else to say on that last piece I said?
I just want to say I do kind of hate. I feel like the Nets ruined a good thing. Not ruined, but I feel like they messed up a good thing with for before they got James Harden, the league was all on duos. It was duos all over the league, and I didn't consider none of them was super teams. I just considered them all good teams because
Mhm.
they didn't fall into my definition. Like LeBron and AD, KD and Kyrie, shoot,
Kawhi and PG.
Chris and Chris and Devin Booker, Kawhi and PG, yeah, not Giannis. Giannis and Chris Middleton, Ben Simmons and Embiid, Luka and Porzingis. I feel like there was duos all over the league, and some of them are better than others, obviously. But it's like in a given night, whoever role player show up that night could beat anybody. So I feel like the Knicks kind of messed up a good thing with that when they added James Harden, and then the Lakers kind of retaliated and got Russell Westbrook. So now I feel like we back to that A and B, like you said. But there's still good teams in the league that I enjoy watching. I feel like other people enjoy watching, and I feel like the Bucks and the Suns in the finals was very much enjoyable to watch,
Oh yeah.
even though it was so different. That's good. Like you said, I feel like the parity of the league is better than just knowing the outcome. And so I feel like we might be back to the A and B of the Lakers and the Nets, but hopefully my Bucks they in the mix again. So you feel me? I ain't count nobody out like that. We still got top three in the league. You know what I'm saying? But but that's all I got on it, man. So what you got next, man?
Yeah, so I kind of jumped the gun in this a little bit, man. So we gave our definitions. So let's gonna kind of go through certain teams and like yay or nay on if they're a super team or not. So you want to go old school to new school or new school to old school?
Let's start with the old school and just kind of move through the years and there until we get to now.
All right, so kind of start off like what we talked about before, the 80s, Lakers and Celtics. So you had Magic,
Mm.
um, Magic, Kareem, Worthy, Michael Cooper, B. Scott, Byron Scott. A lot of hoopers, man, back in the day. That was the Lakers squad. And you move over to the Celtics, you had Larry Legend Bird, you had
Mm.
Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge. You had Bill Walton later on a couple of those years. Solid squads. Like it was A and B. So would you consider those teams super teams?
Um, I don't know if I would consider the Celtics one. I feel like they are by my definition because they had some of the best players in the league. Kevin McHale, probably the best power forward in the league at the time. Larry Bird, the best small forward at the time. Robert Parrish, one of the best centers at the time. So I would consider them a super team. I would consider them a super team. And then you got Magic and Bird, not Magic and Bird, but Magic and Kareem on the other end. But the Lakers drafted Magic. He inherited Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and so was there his rookie year. I don't think was Byron Scott there when Magic got there.
Uh, I think so.
I don't know. I had to research that, but Magic inherited Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and we
Mhm.
didn't know Magic would be Magic Johnson at the time. So that kind of was like that fell into their lap. So like,
Yeah.
that's good. Recruiting and drafting from them, but it's a super team by the definition of they were all top players in the league, but they drafted them, so it's not something. It's not something like you said. It was grown and not bought. Like even though Kareem wasn't drafted there, Kareem came and then they got Magic. So it's like Kareem was there and he was the drafted. And he came who we know as Magic Johnson. So um, it was it was uh it was created, so not bought like you however you worded it. uh,
Built, not
So
bought.
yeah, they built. You said built, not bought. Yeah. My bad, my bad. So it was built and not bought. Like they got Kareem in there, but the rest of the team was built by them. So they are super teams in terms of having three of the best players in the league or three of the top players in the league at the time. But other than that, They still were built and not bought, like you said. So they have more respect that way. I feel like that's big on it too. If you built and not bought, you'll have more respect than being bought. So that's why we don't really question them like that, like their greatness, because their teams were built for them or built in like the natural way of doing things in the league. And so we respect that a whole lot more than people who just put teams together and, shipped out money to get free agents in or traded half their team for the best players in the league. So yeah, I consider them super teams by my terms, by my definition, but they're respected a little more than other teams, other super teams we've seen.
So by my definition, of course, I would say no. Like you said, it's like they already had Kareem. Well, Lakers, I'll say is not because they already had Kareem, which they acquired through trade, I think. And they drafted Word, they drafted Magic. So it's like you didn't know what those players really. I mean, of course, you had number one overall pick, and James Worthy was, I think, a top 3 pick, I believe. And so of course, you coming in having young players, but at the same time, you're not 100% sure how they're going to turn out. They could have been busts and flops and just been an average players around Kareem. And so
right.
I don't consider them really being a super team. Were they amazing and were they a great legendary dynasty? Of course. But a super team, not really. Because like I said, the key pieces, of course you have to acquire key pieces around them. You can't draft every single player on your team and expect to be a good team. That's just almost impossible to do. And so, of course, you're going to have key free agents and key role players you got to sign and trade for. But the main key pieces that you have around your team, I think those are what define a super team. So I can consider either one of those guys or either one of those teams to be a super team. Like going to the Celtics, Bird was drafted, McHale was drafted, and I think Parrish was, I think he was drafted or traded for, but he wasn't Robert Parrish at the time when he acquired them. So I don't consider either one of those super teams. So we kind of agree on that one. So next is the 90s. I mean, we could go 76ers, but that's not as prominent. But 90s, we all know that man ruled that era with an iron fist. Air Jordan.
23 in red.
His 90s Bulls team, man. Are they considered a super team?
Surprisingly enough, I'm gonna say Dennis Rodman. But I consider him a super team. And Tony Kukoc was cold too. But that's up for the debate a little bit if he one of the best players in the league. But with Michael Jordan and when Scotty became Scotty, and one of the best two-way players in the league, and then they had Dennis Rodman, that I consider a super team because that's the 72 and 10 team, right? Yeah, Dennis Rodman's on that team. Now that's when I was like, when I see that one, Dennis Rodman definitely top 5 power forward. Mike, the best player in the league. Scotty, the best small forward in the league at the time. That's what I consider a super team. So in the first 3 rings, they got. I feel like they, were they dominant? Yeah, but Scotty was like another top 5, top 10 player in the league. However you want to rank him, but we just attribute that to the greatness of Michael Jordan. But then when they add Dennis Rodman, now it's like, all right, this is a little OD. You got the best scorer, 2 of the best defenders, 3 of the best defenders, the best rebounder. Like, all right, what can we do?
Yeah,
we can't stop you, and we can't score on y'all. Like,
yeah,
I feel like now that's when I feel like it became a super team. So what you think?
Yeah, like initially I would think overall, like out of those 6 championship teams, I consider, like you said, the first 3, I think that was just a dynasty, Like you said, when you traded for Rodman from the Spurs, and like you said, Rodman's easily one of the best, arguably the best rebounder at that time, arguably top 5 defenders of that time. If you don't like top 5, I don't think I could put him any lower than that. Like, I'm sorry.
No, you good.
Anybody listen, if you can't have Robin in the top five at that time, I know there's a lot of good defenders, but Robin was doing damage. So I don't care. And then Jordan, everybody knows Jordan Pippen. They was terrorizing the wings. So 72-10, man.
Right.
Like I would have to consider that year specifically to be a super team. The year they went 72-10. I think Robin was there 2 years. So when Rodman came aboard, that's when they really pushed that edge to become a super team. And I'll kind of touch back on this later when we talk about certain other teams, but you have two of the top premier players in the game, period, I don't care what position. And then you add on that third piece where he's not necessarily a superstar, but in his position, he's superstar level. And he's one of the best in the league at what he does. Like he's technically a role player, but he's a superstar role player, like we'll talk about later. And I just feel like that pushed him over the edge to where it's like, what are we gonna do about this team now? Like you said before, we can't stop them, and we can't stop y'all, but they can stop us. What are we gonna do? So that pushed him to the edge to where it's like, yeah, we didn't get this. This team was at first built, and then we bought this other key piece that made us the super team. So I feel like the Robin years of the Bulls team that pushed them to be a super team. So outside of that, I think they're just a regular old dynasty. I won't say regular dynasty, but just a dynasty, So
Yeah, same way you say about the Lakers and the Celtics. They were a great team and a good time, and they were a dynasty. So I feel that. But yeah, we definitely got to say the 72-10 team, super team. Now
yeah,
before that, you can say what you want, but
yeah,
after that point, well, go ahead.
yeah.
What's next team? What we debate next?
All right, next is the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. I think that one's a little bit more debatable overall, but that's tough. But I want to see what you feel about how you feel about the Kobe and Shaq Lakers, the three-peat Lakers.
Nah, I wouldn't call that a super team. I went out now the dominant. Yes, I would definitely say dominant. But we got to remember. I think people forget a lot of times. The Lakers traded for Shaq, and Kobe wasn't even there yet. But they told him they was going to draft a kid named Kobe Bryant that was supposed to be good, which they did, obviously. And so Shaq get there without Kobe. Kobe gets there, and Kobe barely even playing. Like, well, he playing, but he ain't starting. He ain't Kobe Bryant. I don't
Yeah.
think people realize Kobe Bryant didn't win no Rookie of the Year. Like, he wasn't even starting. So it still took a couple years for him to become who we see him as now. So I don't think people realize that. So as you said, they still was kind of built and not bought. Like, what did they acquire Shaq? But yeah, but who ain't finna acquire Shaq? And they ain't even have no star at the time. It just was Shaq, and they was promising a good future. It was like, hey, we're gonna take care of you. We got good pieces coming in. Just trust us. And he trusted them. And they brought him Kobe Bryant, and they brought in Rick Fox, who was an established veteran. And I feel like that. I don't consider that super team. I consider that a great 1-2 punch. But at the time they got Kobe Bryant, he wasn't considered a great player in the league. And then it took a couple years for him to become who he is and become who we know, like Shaq and Kobe. We could just say Shaq and Kobe and think of how good they were. Like, it wasn't Shaq and Kobe when Kobe first got there.
Mm-hmm.
It was Shaq and the Lakers.
Yeah.
So, no, I can't call that one a super team. I consider that just a well put together team. And the GMs and the front office did their job. So I think that's just a good team. So what do you say about that one?
So what about that '04 squad when they had Karl Malone and GP on the team?
That's tough to say because Gary Payton and Karl Malone weren't even in their prime. Like, Gary Payton played for a couple more years after that because he played with D Wade and them.
Yeah.
No, that was just the next year. That was just the next
Yeah, that was like
year.
2 years after that, a year or two after that.
Yeah, but Karl Malone definitely I don't consider that a super team. I feel like they weren't in their prime no more. So you still only got Shaq and Kobe who was in their prime. Like I said, if you ain't got three of the best players in the league all in their prime, I don't want to consider that a super team. So Karl Malone and GP was just on for the ride. They was homeboys. I just heard Gary Payton talk about it. He was like, "Yeah, man, we can link up in LA, try to make a good run, uh, make a push for a title, stuff like that." They out here discussing it. Just how they discussing how I feel like everybody think superstars discuss forming a super team. Like, hey, me and you can link up. Say we can link up there, make a good push. You know, we friends up in LA. And, you know, they can do what it do, and then it just ain't work out because they ain't in their prime. So they throwing the chemistry of Shaq and Kobe off.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't consider none of those Lakers teams a super team. They just was dominant. They had two of the best players in the league, and they just did what they made it do. They made it happen. So I wouldn't consider that a super team.
No, I wouldn't either. Because like you said, they got Shaq. Shaq was great, but he wasn't. He's kind of like LeBron before he won the ring. Giannis before he won the ring. Like he was great, but he ain't there yet. And
He ain't in that
so
top tier.
yeah, like he was a really good player, but can he win? That was the talk before he won. And like you said, Kobe wasn't Kobe. He was just a really nice young piece. And then he didn't really become Kobe until maybe after the second ring, where he was like, oh, snap, the boy something. Like he was Kobe, he was nice, but he wasn't like premier top tier player.
He won Bean.
Yeah, he wasn't being yet. He was just Kobe Bryant. He's just like, really good guy, but he ain't there. He on that level. So,
Right.
like you said, he got drafted there. All of the pieces came in. Like we said before, super team has to have three superstars on there. So regardless of if how they got them, you need that third piece. And like you said, with the '04 team, Karl Malone was definitely not a superstar at that time. And GP wasn't a superstar at that time. That wasn't the glove. He was just, I don't want to say a mitten, but he was still balling, but it wasn't Gary Payton. Like not what we know for him to be. So I don't think any of those early 2000s Lakers were a super team. Were they a dynasty, a great team? Yes. Super team? No. So it's been
Yeah, I
pretty.
think people get those two things confused though, dynasty and super team. Just because a team won championships in a row don't make them. You could be a dynasty without being a super team. I feel like we should throw that out there. Like just because our team happens to be dominant in this point in time, does not make them a super team. Like we said, you was saying with the Lakers and the Celtics, like we consider them a super team. I do, but you don't. But both of them were dynasties. And then we just said the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, definitely a dynasty, but neither one of us call them a super team. So just because your team was dominant does not also make them a super team. Let's throw that out there for the people. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I digress.
Nah, that kind of take me to the next team I want to talk about. San Antonio Spurs. They won 5 championships within how many years was that? Maybe a 9-10 year span, I guess. So obviously a dynasty, but would you consider them a super team?
I would consider none of them a super team. So I say that because of course they had Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan for the last 3. And in the beginning they had Tim Duncan and David Robinson. But they never had that third superstar. Like, really, I don't consider Tony Parker a superstar. I don't think maybe some people, but it's debatable. But have we ever looked at Tony Parker and was like, he top 5 point guard in the league? Maybe in the mid 2000s, it was still Chris Paul time. It was still Chris Paul. It was still Steve Nash, Jason Kidd. Do we throw Tony Parker in that top 5 point guard discussion during that early to mid 2000s? But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah,
but tough. Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, yeah. But Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, they of course were a great duo. And then you got Manu Ginobili. But Manu, 6th man of the year. We can't call him a superstar. And then, Tim Duncan and David Robinson together was 2 of the best bigs in the league. But who the third star? Avery Johnson, Vinny Del Negro, like I don't think the Spurs never had that third superstar. That's why I say unless you count Greg Popovich being the coach as the third superstar, I just wouldn't call it a super team. They was well put together. They were built, as you say, and they had a coach that knew what to do with them. So I think that's just all it was. And yeah, they just did it. They did it the right way, and they drafted the right pieces. They had the right coach for them, and they played together well. And that's just part of it. You know, sometimes you get that group that just plays well together, and I think the Spurs had that with Tony. And, you know, gonna bring up, forget that season he was a regular player. Nobody considered Kawhi Leonard to be a superstar in that time. We was out here not even worried about Kawhi Leonard. He wasn't an all-star or nothing. And then he made it to the playoffs and he was guarding LeBron. You know, we was considering him a great defender. I want to say he won Defensive Player of the Year. The next year after they won the championship or something like that, he won Defensive Player of the Year. But at the time when they won the championship, it was like, oh, Kawhi Leonard, he just started small forward. You know what I'm saying? So, none of those teams what I consider super teams. Just great teams, played great together, played great basketball. We still consider like moving the ball. When people move the ball well, we still like, man, they playing Spurs basketball. We still say that. So that lets you know right there, like they just played the right way. So just because they are, like I said, because they are dynasty does not mean they are super team. So what you think?
No, like just a dynasty, bro. Like just like you said, like the old school '90s Spurs when they had David Robinson and Tim Duncan, it was just those two. And that third piece, Sean Elliott, he was a solid player. I think he had an All-Star year once or twice. Avery Johnson, solid point guard, but he wasn't superstar level. So fast forward to when they start winning in the 2000s, young Manu and Tony, they definitely weren't superstar level players. They were just really good all-star players. And Kawhi wasn't Kawhi Leonard we know now. So it's just a dynasty that we had with the right pieces, the right time, and really great team. So next up on our list, something near and dear to both of our hearts, going to Beantown with Boston Celtics Big Three. You know, it's that 2008 championship winning team, super team.
Oh man, I can't lie. Much as I love the Celtics, much as I love KG, much as I love, they bought KG off the Timberwolves for half their team, including I got Theo Radley.
Yep.
Got to throw him in there now that we know that. Brought him in. Now they got a star lineup full of great players like Rondo, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, KG, and Kendrick Perkins. That's like when we look back on it, that is a crazy starting five. Like great defense and great offense. And you know, Rondo was CMS today, really, because he was still kind of young at the time. But he still was a solid point guard. Like I don't think we was considering him top 5 point guards at the time. But Ray Allen definitely solidified star in the league at that point. Best shooter in the league down at that point. Just ain't much you can say about that one. Until when they made that blockbuster trade for KG, that solidified it. That was a super team. One ring out of that because I don't know if you consider that worth it or not. Trading half your team for one player and you get one ring out the deal. But they were kind of older or getting older. But still, I feel like you make a blockbuster trade like that, you expect them to get multiple titles, and they only got the one. But I digress. Yeah, definitely I would consider them a super team.
So that one, I've been debating on that one for a couple of years now, man. So going back to my definition of a super team, 3 superstars, they check that off. In their prime is the questionable piece. Because they were at the tail end. I just kind of looked up the numbers of the age. All those guys were in their 30s. So it's like, I think Ray Allen was the oldest, and he was 33 at the time, and KG and Paul Pierce. And so Ray Allen still considered a top 5 shooting guard in the game at the time. KG is probably still considered top 3 power forward at the time. Paul Pierce was probably one of the top scorers in the game, still one of the top small forwards in the game. And we look at all those guys with a lot of respect. Like you said before, Rondo wasn't really Rondo at the time. He didn't really become Rondo until a year or two later after that. You know, they did a lot of injuries. And Perk, he was respected as one of the best centers in the game, or defensive centers at least. Probably arguably the best, especially by Kobe Bryant. He said he was one of those top guys. So you get a stamp from Kobe, that's a stamp for everybody. You question Kobe. So I gotta consider them super team, man. 'Cause like you said, Paul Pierce was there. He was drafted since I think 96, 97, 98, one of those years. And they traded for KG, they signed Ray, and with those pieces, they came together and win in that year. Like you said before, I don't know how successful you consider that team, because like you said, you win one, I think it's had 3 or 4 years together. But I'm gonna go down on saying this, bro. If we didn't lose Perk that next year, we would have went back to back. We would have easily went through and went back to back. I'm gonna keep going down saying that, because we couldn't stop the White that year. The White went and got over on us, and that was the key piece, man. Like Perk was getting everybody problems in the post. So then we came in with our bench, and you had to look at Big Baby and PJ Brown. Like they were solid pieces, but Perk was that anchor, man. Like back in the day,
Man, Perk.
you had to have that anchor, and Perk was probably the best anchor in the game at that time. Is what his position was. And so, looking at that team, man, we could have went back to back, and we probably, or at least could have won that year after that when we lost to the Lakers in the championship. So we could have went 2 out of 3 or 4, how many years it was before they traded off. Not traded, but whenever Ray left and first team got broken apart. But we could have been a dynasty. We had a really solid team, but super team, I have to say yes, because they were inches away from not being a dynasty, because they was pushing out of that prime. Because I think the oldest guy was 33, the next guy was like 32, and the next guy was like 30 or 31. So your 3 main pieces were pushing it right there out of their prime. But now I got to think back of how they were still prominent at their position and then like their ranking in the league. So I consider that '08 team a super team, man. So that's my team. That's what got both of us into being Celtics fans. So we got a super team that birthed us into that team, man. So the '08 squad, that's the first super team we actually agree on, man. So it's crazy. I got one for you. I think it's going to be a very interesting piece that'll kind of break down into other teams. So, like we just talked about, the Boston Big Three had a run. The team broke apart. Ray Allen went to the Heat. You had Paul Pierce and KG go to the Nets. That Nets team had Darren Williams at the point, Joe Johnson at the 2, Paul Pierce at the 3, KG at the 4, Brook Lopez at the 5. Would you consider that team a super team?
No. Paul and KG outside their prime. Darren Williams, I feel like he was nearing the end of it. Like, and then he wasn't the Darren Williams we saw in Utah. So feel like definitely not a super team. They just weren't. They were outside their prime at that time. Yeah, where they they was one of those teams where like you see on social media it would be like if they were all in their prime, which team would win? Like they one of those teams.
Yeah.
Like definitely would not say they were a super team. KG got out of there, Paul out of there, Darren Williams getting ready to be out of there. Brook Lopez never been a star. So I just wouldn't even consider that. Would you?
I don't know, man, because you got to think about it. You got to think both. We're looking at it with hindsight. So remember, in the moment, Darren Williams was still Darren Williams. He was still arguably, it was still him and CP kind of going back and forth for a minute. So Darren Williams wasn't on. We didn't think of him on a decline yet. He was still one of the top PGs in the game. Joe Johnson just left the Hawks from killing against the Celtics and the playoffs matchups he had against the Heat and stuff. Joe Johnson was still doing his thing. So Paul Pierce and KG, they're questionable, but I think both of those guys combined make up for a great player. I ain't trying to be like bend the edges to make it be a super team, but it's like that's tough, man. I wouldn't consider them a super team, but I think they were like a blip away from being a super team. Just because it's like,
you think in the moment, only thing in the moment. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think in the moment we did, because you got, like I said before, you got to think about when we first saw that team. They was on the cover of Sports. I still remember the cover in my head right now. The cover of Sports Illustrated, and it was hype to see. That's when Brooklyn first came in. Jay-Z first hopped on, and he changed it from Jersey to Brooklyn. Like, we were hyped about that. And I think that
Oh yeah.
in the moment, we was like, oh man, they finna win championship this year. So in the moment, we was like, oh, this is a super team. Kind of like another team we're gonna talk about later on. It's gonna be a super team. Just because they didn't pan out doesn't mean they weren't a super team. It's just a super team that failed. And so in the moment, we had Darren Williams still one of the top 10 point guards in the game. Joe Johnson probably still top 10 shooting guards in the game. Paul Pierce was going to be a closer, probably. Well, I don't know. I think he was in the closer, but he was still doing his thing. He's kind of that Ray Allen piece like he was to the Heat. And then KG, I think he's still arguably top 10 power forward in the game. So I would consider them a super team, man. I have to. Just like hindsight looking back, it's like, oh, that team's terrible. But in that moment, we was gassing them up, man. Like Darren Will still top 10, Joe Johnson still top 10. KG arguably still top 10 in the power forwards. Paul Pierce arguably still top 10. So I think in that moment, we were gassing them up. And so looking back on it, it's like, oh, they was trash. They ain't do nothing. But we got to consider them, just because they failed doesn't mean they weren't a super team.
Well, let me say, I think in the moment I did think they were going to be good, but I never gave them a chance of beating Miami or, shoot, I don't think I ever thought them beating Indiana when Paul Jordan was still there. So maybe that's why I say that. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, but I feel, you know, in the moment we did think they would be good, but I never thought they was going to be like championship contender good. Like, I was like, this is the end of Paul and KG. That's what I was thinking at the time. I was like, this is where they're going to go to die.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, part of me was a little bitter
feel
because they left the Celtics. So,
yeah, I was also sad about that. Boy, that was sad. Like, Paul Pierce not a Celtic no more. KG not a Celtic no more. I was like, this it. This is the end of the run. So maybe that's what it was. But I feel why you would say they're a super team, though.
So yeah. I'm thinking who came in the next order. I kind of jumped the gun. The Heat big three.
Yes. Next one.
Yeah.
Next team. Them boys threw that together, calling their homeboys. Hey, let's play it here like this an AAU team.
Yeah.
They definitely a super team. All top 5 in their position. Best small forward. Arguably the second best shooting guard next to Kobe. Top 5 power forward under KG, Dirk, Tim Duncan. Then Bosh probably number 4. So all top 5 in their position. Then you throw in Ray Allen, who's no longer, you know, a top shooting guard in the league, but still top shooter, period. It's like, no debate.
Yeah.
Super team.
5 seconds, and that's it, bro. We spent so I ain't got to say anything else. I don't think I would answer that. This time answer they were. So if you remember, D-Wade won in 06, right? And that was their 3rd year in the league. Around from 08 to before LeBron got there, him and LeBron were going neck and neck as best player in the game.
Right.
Bruh, for you to be going neck and neck with LeBron as best player in the game, then you team up, that's not fair. Like,
yeah, I think a lot of people still consider Kobe better than Wade, and then, you know, Kobe team wasn't all that at the time because Shaq had just came and joined up with Wade. But Wade had a crazy finals, so now it was like, dang, D Wade really like the guy right now.
yeah.
When they won in 2006, and then, you know, a couple years later, you know, the Lakers came back and got back on top in 2009 and 2010. So I think that's when we was like, all right, so it's still Kobe. It's still Kobe league. You feel me? LeBron up and coming. Then LeBron and Wade joined up. It was like, oof. Like, these two on the same team, throw in Bosh.
Yeah.
Like this remind me, you ever see the thing that was talking about Peyton Manning's Hall of Fame meeting or whatever, when they do like the Hall of Fame committee meet and discuss who should make it whenever they're eligible. And they said Peyton Manning's with 13 seconds.
Yeah.
And they said somebody else said it was 13 seconds too long.
Yep.
That's the would you consider Miami Heat big three? Yes. Definitely.
Hey, this article should have been. All right, so next team is Miami Heat big three. They super team? Yes. All right, next team we're talking
next
about.
Team. Gotta do it, bro. Much as I appreciate Bron and Wade, like gotta say it, man. Gotta call a spade a spade.
Yeah,
It's definitely a super team.
yeah, hands down. So I just wanted people to remind. I just want to throw how great D Wade was. I just had to throw that in there, man. That's all I wanted to do.
I feel you. That's your boy.
'Cause he was killing, bro. Like he should have won the MVP. I think in '09. I'm just throw that out there too. Say, I think that was Kobe year. I think it was. I
Yeah.
want to do the MVP. So I'm sorry, Kobe. You should have won a couple of yours from Nash too. We ain't talk about that either. Anyway, same with Shaq. I don't care, man. I like Nash. I love Nash too. Don't Nash was one of my favorite point guards growing up. So I
Hey,
Shaq.
you know, in basketball, you can't up nobody without downing somebody else.
Man, I swear, bro, you can't talk nobody. It's like right now with Drake and Kanye. I can't love Drake and Kanye. I got to be against it. Like
You gotta be on the side of the fence.
it's stupid, bro. But
But
next
the
team,
world we live in.
wow, man. After that, kind of touching on how we did with that Brooklyn team. The Lakers they tried to pull a super team together when they had Steve Nash at the point, Kobe. They had Metal World Peace, Ron Artest. I remember exactly what his name is at the time. Not trying to be disrespectful.
Yeah.
Then you had Paul Gasol and Dwight Howard. Was that team a super team?
Yeah. Gotta say yeah. Because at the time we still saw Dwight Howard top center in the league when he joined over the Lakers. Still Kobe, top player in the league. And then Steve Nash was still, even though he was on the backslide, like was considered Steve Nash. Like, he wasn't no slouch. And Pau Gasol. So Pau Gasol still considered top 5 power forward. So yeah, I definitely got to call them super team. They're a failed super team. Dwight Howard just ain't panning out. Him and Kobe had their whole falling out. Steve Nash just, was broken, couldn't get healthy. And then Pau Gasol was still, I feel like Pau Gasol was just Pau Gasol. I feel like Pau Gasol was never like the problem. He just was there. Pau gonna come in and do his job, go home.
Yeah.
But and Derek Fisher was still there at the time, or was Derek already retired?
I think at around that time, I think he either was retired or he was with the Jazz, I believe so.
Oh, okay. Maybe so. But yeah, definitely a super team. They threw them together. White, Steve. They thought they was just gonna mesh, and they couldn't pan out. So just a failed super team. So yeah, I gotta say yeah for that one.
I think this one's a little bit more debate. I don't want to be hypocritical. I just said the Nets were. Only difference between those two was a health thing. So like, I don't consider Nash being one of the top point guards at the time because the last few years he was with the Suns, he was already broken down. Like kind of just like he wasn't himself. He wasn't Nash. Mm-hmm. He wasn't anywhere close to MVP Nash that we know. I don't think he was all-star for real for that time. If he was, he probably just stole a couple of spots because of popularity. No offense, but I definitely don't consider Nash. If you're going to consider a team a super team, because of Nash. Like Nash was hobbled at that point. So
still got Kobe, Powell, and Dwight though.
On to my next point with Dwight. Of course, okay, it's Kobe and Powell. That's 1, 2. But like we said, need that third piece. Nash was not going to complete that third piece. So Dwight, he was Orlando, went to Houston, went to LA. Going into the Lakers, he had the back issue because remember he got hurt in Houston, and that's why part of the reason why him and James didn't work out because he had the back issues like the last year or two when he was there. So he never really fully got back to the Dwight Howard, that like Superman Dwight Howard, and his whole time in Houston was kind of jacked up because of that. And then got to the Lakers looking for a restart, got back issues still. Now, was Dwight still putting up great numbers? Yes. Was he superstar Dwight? Is the real question. Was he still top 10 in his position at that time? Very questionable.
I would say yeah though. I'm trying to think back in the earlier 2010s. Yeah, I feel like it was like DeMarcus Cousins. AD was still on the come up back then. I feel like Dwight was in the mix. Andrew Bynum was just like exiting.
Yeah, that's when he left with the Philly, I think.
Yeah, we still had Amari Stoudemire at the time, who was a power forward, I guess.
I
And
think
then
Yao was still hooping. Was Yao still hooping?
yeah, I was still in the mix.
No, he couldn't have been. He was a
In the
Rocket for life and
2000s.
he retired. Wasn't he a Rocket for life?
Oh, you're right. So he was already
Yeah.
out the way.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I'm thinking Dwight still was top 10 in his position. So I gotta say so. But I mean, I understand it's kind of debatable. He wasn't like Orlando 3-time defensive player of the year, Dwight. But he still, I feel like at the time we looked at him and still was like, oh, that's Dwight Howard. Like he gonna do what he do type stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I
And
just
he's
feel like
still in
that
the
team.
league. So
Yeah. I think that team was just funky, man. Cause like we didn't, I know looking back at it, I didn't look at them as being like, oh, the Lakers are just gonna come through and just smack everybody. Yeah. Cause it was like how everybody was questioning. I don't know if everybody, I know I was questioning how Kobe and Nash gonna work. That's it's gonna be a weird mix. I know Steve Nash is passed first, but Kobe doesn't do well with getting assists. Like most of his shots not assisted. So how's that gonna work?
it's give me the ball.
Just give me the ball and get out my way. Steve Nash is like pick and roll. So if you took Kobe or Nash off of that team and you let them cooperate with everybody else, I think that team would have been really solid. But those two being together, they both need the ball to operate. Like Kobe's never been catch and shoot. He's never been an off the ball operator, not for long stretches at least. And Nash hasn't been either. He's basically relegated to catch and shoot point guard in the corner. That's never been Nash's thing. So whether you're looking at it as far as how we looked at it before with the injuries, or look at schematically of how those guys will operate and flow, neither guy will be superstar level with the other guy on there. Like if Steve Nash to be great, Kobe could not have been Kobe. He wouldn't have been jab, pump fake Kobe that we know. Steve Nash wouldn't have been pick and roll, looping through under the goal and come back around. That neither of the guys would have been there because the other one had to take over for the other guy to like take a step down. So in that respect, neither guy would have been flourishing. So it's just like at the time I was like, they all right, you know. So the White is the real questionable piece. If the White could have been at least all-star the White, that probably would have pushed him to the edge. But like we said, you gotta have that superstar piece. And so I think he was probably still top 10. So if I threw the Nets in there, I feel like I gotta throw the Lakers in there. And Dwight was probably still top 10. And that's how great Dwight was. Like we're gonna talk about this later with that other topic we had before, but like Dwight was for him to be hurt that bad and still putting up 20 and 10 like he was and still
He's just a
shot blocking,
monster, bro.
that boy's nasty. So the White is what gave him that saving grace to where I throw him in that super team debate. So I just feel like that team was real questionable, man, versus the Nets because the injuries and the way that team meshed had more question marks than I feel like the Nets did. Like the Nets definitely didn't have question marks, but I feel like the roles were more clearly defined than it was with the Lakers. Because you knew you're gonna have like Joe Johnson was able to operate off the ball a little bit more. Paul Pierce was able to operate off the ball a little more. So Darren Williams could have been Darren Williams and still had great production from the other guys versus Nash and Kobe would have collided. So that's the biggest difference I see with those two teams. So yeah, we agree on that one, man.
We getting up. We getting up.
Yeah, we got about four more teams we're gonna talk about, man. So next up on this run of great teams, Wardell, Stephen Curry, and his squad, man. Pre KD, the first couple years before they had KD. Would you consider that squad to be a super team when it was just Steph, Clay, and Draymond?
This might surprise you, but I wouldn't. Like, I never really thought of them as being a super. I was like, man, this is a good team. Like Steph, one of the best shooters of all time. Like, this was before we was calling Steph the best shooter of all time. He was one of the best shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And then Clay, one of the better shooters of all time. Then Draymond, great defender. But I feel like at the time, I'm trying to think about, I'm trying to put myself in their headspace. Like at the time, I don't think I looked at them like, dang, this is the best team in the league. Until they won the ring, and I was like, okay, they tough. Like this a good team. But at the time, I never looked at them and was like, man, this is a super team, this OP. They got too much. I never looked at them like that. I feel like
Yeah.
Draymond. I always felt like Draymond was a little overrated. But I feel like he did his job. You know what I'm saying? He played good defense, but I feel like he was a little overrated. I feel like Draymond wouldn't be Draymond Green in any other system. And that's just my opinion. That's a conversation for another day. But then you got Stephen Clay, who would be great in any system. So, but they came up together and they just great shooters. I don't feel like we can look at them and be like, oh, that's a super team when they just play good together. Like I said, they sometimes teams just mesh. They just play well together. So I wouldn't consider them a super team. None of them. Steph became a top 5 player in his position. I feel like Clay became top 5. Yeah, we just think top 5 shooting guard. But at the time, he had to earn that spot. He was still earning that spot in top 5 shooting guards. And it wasn't until they started making them finals runs that we said that. So, and then Draymond, I guess we say Draymond top 5 power forward. But like I said, I always felt like it's only because he played there. Like, so he allowed to just do his job. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't think I can call them that. I think they're just a good team that meshed well, was well put together. And that's all it is to it.
Yeah, I agree. Simply based off my built versus bought theory. So it's like
They were built.
they were built. Like they didn't trade for Steph. They didn't trade for Clay. Like you said, at the same time, even if they did trade for any of them, they weren't superstars at the time. Like Steph was a great player. Was he top 5 or top 10 guards at the time? Maybe top 10. Clay for sure wasn't a top 5 shooting guard at the time. He was just one of the best. They were just one of the best shooters in the game. They weren't like player for player. You weren't ranking them above a lot of players. Like they were great. Like great. Clay was just a great two-way player, a great shooter,
Right.
great defender. That's it. Draymond was a great playmaker, and that was it. You know what I mean? He fit that organization, fit that team and system. I don't think we consider any of those guys to be superstars. We didn't consider them superstars until, like you said, a year or two after that first ring when they started winning for real, for real. And so none of that for me adds up to be a super team. It was just right team at the right time, playing well, like you said. So now to move on to that next year after they lost to the
That
Cavs,
monster.
they added freaking Durantula, easy money sniper. I'm gonna go ahead and say that's a super team for me, man. That's
Oh
solidified.
yeah, definitely. Same with Miami. It's like the conversation ain't gonna be long.
Yeah.
It's
So
definitely a super team.
like I said, once you added that key piece of making you a superstar, we added a superstar piece through trade or signing, that solidified the super team. So
It's over.
yeah. Going to their counterparts, the Cavs of that year.
LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love.
Would you consider that a super team?
I would have to say yes, mainly because that's when Kevin Love became, right before he went to the Cavs, Kevin Love became that superstar in Minnesota. And people often forget
I
that
was gonna mention that.
Kevin Love used to be that deal in Minnesota. 40, I'm talking
Man,
about 40 and 20, 35 and 25, like crazy numbers. Like, and shooting the peel off the ball. He used to be putting up crazy numbers. People forget. And he don't look like it. I feel like that's why people forget how good he really was. He don't look like he was doing all that.
yeah,
Especially in Cleveland. We look at him in Cleveland, sometimes people be like, oh, Kevin Love ain't show up in the finals and junk like that. Kevin Love really sucked. People sometimes blame other folks for their championship losses and stuff, especially when it comes to LeBron. But Kevin Love was that deal before he came to Cleveland. Was the third option.
yeah,
First option, Kevin Love was giving you 40 some nights and giving you 15 to 20 rebounds. Like crazy stats. Like the stats we see Giannis putting up now, he was doing that, but he was making threes.
yeah,
Like he was putting up similar numbers, but with the three ball, doing it in a different way.
yeah,
Man, I don't think people realize, boy, K Love used to be that deal. And then, Kyrie was, he was the young bull of that time. He was coming up. I don't think we consider him top 5 point guards till they got there though. But he was obviously like a solid player. Similar to how we kind of look at Ja Morant now. It's like he young, but like it's very apparent that he ready. Like
yeah,
he got what it takes. Or like Trae Young.
yeah,
Like obviously he ain't got the pieces right now, but we know he the real deal.
yeah,
And LeBron and K Love just come back to Cleveland. forming that team, I think they're definitely a super team. They just at that point in time, Caleb top 5 power forward, LeBron top 5 player of all time in his prime, and
Yeah.
then Kyrie. I would have to call that a super team.
So yeah, we agree. I just want to fan out on Kevin Love. So obviously, super team no longer a conversation. Bro, Kevin Love was that deal. When I was a huge Kevin Love fan. Like you
Really?
said, huge. Just because he was so dominant and it didn't make sense in my mind how this man was putting up 40 points and 20 rebounds. Like
Man.
you would think somebody like the White would be putting up them numbers and maybe a KG or something because they're a little bit more athletic and they can handle the ball like Boogie. They could do more. Kevin Love was not that athletic. And if people forget, Kevin Love used to be fat. He had some weight on him. He
Right.
was chubby. So for him to be putting up 30, 40 points and 20, like 15, 20 rebounds, I'm just like, how are you doing this, bro? Like, he had all my respect, man. So, like, when he was arguably for me, arguably the best power forward in the game for a minute. Like, he was hitting game winners and everything, man. Like, they
Facts.
weren't winning for real. Like, they were still Minnesota at the bottom of the barrel. But
Right.
for him to be dominant like that, 40 and 20 rebounds, come on, bro. Like, if he's
Gotta
not,
respect you.
you gotta respect that, man. Like Boogie when he was in Sacramento, bro. Like the stuff they doing was ridiculous, man. So I was a huge Kevin Love fan. Like he was, like if I was like assembling a team, he probably was in my top 3 power forwards to like put together. Like
Yeah.
he was killing.
I was on 2K. Hey, I was on 2K trying to get Kevin Love on my league teams and I was like, a power forward that ain't gonna miss that quarter 3. Give it to me.
Exactly.
I was on Kevin Love now. Hey,
I just had to fan out over Kevin Love, man, because that
he
people
was the
forget, like you
deal.
said, he was that deal, bro. Like he was giving people the business in Minnesota, bro. Like I don't care what nobody say, man. You can hate on Kevin Love now and say whatever you want to say, bro. He was the truth, man. He was I think top 5 pick coming into the league. So it's just like put respect on his name, man. Like Kevin Love, he wasn't like Chris Bosh was, man. He wasn't gonna be the superstar like you saw the first 2 guys were. Like it's literally hard for you to be dominant and that great when you're the third option. Like that's very hard to do. Very hard.
Mm.
So I don't care. Like even with the Warriors, like Klay Thompson still wasn't. Only reason Klay Thompson flourished because of the way he played. Yeah, he was third option, but most of his game was catch and shoot or off the ball
Yeah,
anyway.
he can do off the ball. That's his game.
So it ain't like with Kevin Love when he catch a low post, go to work, spin, shot, or he catch a high post, shot, or he catch it a 3, shot. Like he's not getting the same looks he was getting in Minnesota. Same as Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh was basically Kevin Love with more athletic. Not say basically Kevin Love with athleticism, but similar situations where they're dominant power forwards in their cities, putting up crazy numbers, dominating their team. They had to completely switch their game to fit with LeBron and their side piece, whether it's Kevin Love or D Wade. So him to be a third option, man, he did his role. So yeah, obviously Cavs were a super team. So I think that's it, man, as far as former teams. So now we're going to today's 2020 and 2021 teams, or 2021, 2022. I haven't even said it.
Mm.
Lakers and Nets. Super teams or no super teams?
Guys to say yes and yes.
Obviously,
I,
no.
Guys to. And like that's crazy because like I said earlier, I didn't consider neither one of them super teams until they cashed out for that
Mm-hmm.
third guy. And then they fit the description. Because you
Yep.
know the shoe fits, you're gonna wear that thing. So I just LeBron and AD, great team, great duo, 1-2 punch. KD, Kyrie, great team, 1-2 punch. Cash out for James Harden. This is super team. You got the
Mm-hmm.
best, you got top 5 point guard, the best shooting guard, second best small forward if you want to put him behind LeBron. So you got top 3 at every position, basically. Or at all 3 positions. And I wasn't even gonna call them a super team with Blake Griffin in them. Like before they got there, if let's say it was Kyrie, KD, Blake Griffin, I won't consider that no super team because Blake outside his prime.
Yeah.
Then you throw James in there. James was just giving people 60. So like I was like, nah, you got 3 players on your team that can get 50 any given night. Literally. Got to be a super team. Then you go with the Lakers. Look, hey, LeBron, AD. I love that team. I was like, this is a good team. I was excited to see how LeBron's gonna play with a big, and it worked out. They won him a championship. Then the arms race started where they got the next guy James Harden. I feel like it's always a retaliation. Like when that
Yeah,
one team got a little too much, we like, all right, it's time to do something. We got to shake it up.
yep,
And they got James Harden, and then LeBron and AD was like, let's call up Russ. Russ ready to be out of Washington. He's a free agent. And I feel like Bron and Russ probably like cool off the court, because I remember a while back, Bron was talking about we 2 of the most misunderstood players or something like that, or most doubted or something. I can't remember how he worded it, but I feel like him and Russ been boys, and he was like, "Let's call up Russ, let's make it work." And so it's always that retaliation, like, oh, the Lakers done won championship. James tired of being in Houston. Let's go get James. The Lakers looked at them like, oh, the Nets just got James Harden. Now we need that third piece. Oh, Russ a free agent. Let me call him my boy. So yeah, yes and yes, hands down. They are super teams of today. What'd
yeah.
you say?
Of course, man. Like the Nets
Of
were a
course.
super team last year because, like you said, Kyrie is top 3, top 5, top 10. You can debate whichever how you want to have them.
If
And
it's below top 5, I ain't trying to debate with you.
regardless, he's a superstar point guard. Like that's not debatable.
Facts.
Um, James Harden, arguably top 5 in the game. Um, you got KD, top 1 or 2. I'm not debating anything less than that. So super team, like that hands down solidified them. You can look at the other pieces, adding them to making it be like a ridiculous monster team, but just with those 3 super teams. And then you
Off the
look
gate.
at yeah, off the rip, that's easy. Then like you said, the Lakers, it was just AD and LeBron with the 1-2 punch. Even when they won a championship, it was really just them 2 as the superstars. They went into it last year, just them 2 were the superstars. You call up Westbrook. Westbrook isn't Westbrook anymore. He's kind of like LeBron. Like he's really starting that decline to where he's starting to become, I don't want to say human, but just like less like Superman with like one chink in his armor. Like Westbrook slow down is still everybody else in the league's top
Top
tier.
speed.
Like same thing for LeBron. So it's like their athleticism and their greatness is so far ahead of everybody else that they're 1 step slower is still a step faster than everybody else. So you still seeing Westbrook as I still see Westbrook as a superstar. And he just put up triple doubles last season, 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons. Like he's still Westbrook. So
He's
that
still
solidifies
doing what he
him.
can do.
Like he's still being Westbrook. So it's just like superstar still. So adding him, pushed him over the edge. And I just feel like now it's getting to a point where it's just like who now they're just going back and forth like who can have the nastiest bench in the roster. So it's like let's call Rondo, get him back. Let's call Dwight and get him back. Let's call Patty Mills, get him over here. LaMarcus Aldridge back. Oh, let's get him on the team now. Now just having an arm race to get the deepest bench, and it's just like now it's
We already
ridiculous.
got the superstars. Now we depending on the people outside of that. So like, got to see who got the best bench now. And man, it's really crazy when that orange race start. It really looked like other people in the league like, all right, well, one of these teams gonna win championship, so I'm finna go over there. Like, it really seemed like they doing that. It'd be like, hey, the Lakers build this song, the Nets got some. It's gonna be one of them. They probably calling their agents like, hey, call up Rob Pelinka, see what we can do.
Yeah.
See what we works on now. I'll take 2.6 million 1 year.
Did he? I
Like,
saw the this post, man. They said and it was crazy. They showed like different ones. They was like they showed one where it's like Luol Deng still making like 5 mil from the Lakers still.
I
And they
saw
showed
that.
Melo and Westbrook, I think, they was making like 2.8 from the Lakers this year. And I'm just like, bro, how are both of these guys making combined less than what Luol Deng is making this year? This year, like right now, they're making this money from the Lakers right now. Not at like at some point, but like right now, this year, 2021. And they showed another one was like I forgot who it was. They said one player is making more than like pretty much all the Lakers bench combined. Like everybody that they just signed this year, and like maybe one or two other pieces for the Lakers roster, is making less. I think it's like 7 players. They're making less than like I forgot who the player was. It might have been like Lou Aldank and somebody else, but they're making less than like somebody else combined. I was like, that's not fair, bro. Like, how many teams would you sit down and be like, they're taking pretty much veteran minimums to play with the team? Not too many teams say it's
That's what I'm saying. Like, they know one of these teams gonna make it.
Yeah.
Keep my side. So yeah. I feel like if you a free agent and let me say if you a free agent, you a role player. You probably looking at their rosters like, what do they need? Oh, they need a little more shooting. That's me. Let me call a Rob. Hey, Rob, I'll take the vet minimum, and I'll come off the bench. Like Rondo probably looking like, okay, they got Russ. They ain't got no backup. I've been there before. I'm sure the Lakers probably call Rondo, but Rondo was like, "Oh yeah, for sure, I'll take vet minimum." He just robbed $15 million off the Clippers. I was like, "Yeah, let me do it. Let's do it, bro. I'm ready. Let's get another one."
Yeah.
So, I think that's just how it is sometimes. Like I think guys know when it's their time. Like they know they probably could get a little bit more money somewhere else. But do I want $5 more million playing for a sorry team or a team that ain't really relevant, or do I want to go ahead and take this vet minimum and compete for this championship? And that just depends on your mentality. But most of the great players gonna go for that championship run, or the ones that ain't got a ring yet. Like, give me the 2.6 mil, bro. I do it. Yeah, we trying to win some.
They probably got some. I don't want to say under the table deals, but some under the table stuff or some what's it called?
Like I'm gonna let you in on my business type thing. Let you invest on this. Let you know how to do this. The insider trading type.
Or it's just like the within it, like contractual stuff. Like if you get to this round of playoffs, you get this amount of money. If you get to the finals, you make this amount of money, so on and so forth. It's extra little stuff in the contract. So it might say 2.8 on paper, but they might be making 3.5 by the end of the year, or 4.2 by the end of the year. So
they're gonna get it on the back end.
Yeah, the back end stuff. Because if we win a championship, that's gonna solidify you in a whole other platform. So
and you in LA. So if you playing for the Lakers, you in LA, you gonna reap the benefits. So
of course.
Hey, what KD say? Hey, bro, we got the Lobos in the cup, man. That's gonna be them. Hey, bro, we got the Lobos in the cup. They gonna make it on the back end, I promise you.
Yeah. Same thing in Brooklyn. Like New York is not a bad place to live either, man. So
no, plenty of business out there.
Exactly. So I think that wraps up our super teams, man. I might have forgot one or two maybe, but
the main ones we good.
the main ones that are most relevant and that matter the most, especially to our conversation and topic. So just want to get a last little quick question, man. Do you have a favorite one out of everybody that we listed? Do you have anyone that's besides the Celtics? I don't know, you can't name them, but like one team that sticks out that was just like it was the most fun to watch them, or it was like you enjoyed that team, whatever the most.
Can't lie, I gotta say, I'll probably say I want to say like the old school Lakers, but I ain't watched them play, so I leave that be. But if I had to pick one that I love to watch play, I can't lie. Much as I hate to say, it'd probably be Miami. Like, and I hated Miami at the time. I hated Miami. I hated LeBron because I was like, man, the Celtics ain't gonna never win again. When they formed, I was like, dang. LeBron with D Wade, with Bosh, how is KG and them gonna ever get back to the finals?
Yeah.
So that hurt me, but I ain't gonna lie. When it comes to like watching Miami, I just they were just one of them teams. Like even though I hated them, I had to watch them. It was like, man, these boys going crazy. The dunk on Jason Terry. I seen the dunk on Jason Terry. With a Christmas Day highlight with Wade through the lava like this good man Brian caught it with his left hand and threw it in. I was like, yo, these boys really going crazy. Like, like hoop fans, I feel like a hoop fan had to enjoy it. Like, even if you ain't like their team, if you enjoy basketball, they was playing great basketball. It was crazy. I was there when 3-point LeBron go for the three, won't go, rebound Bosh, out to Allen, bang. Man, when you watch that, bro. Do you know when I watched that, I'll be back in 2013?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'd be right back in 2013 when I hear that clip.
Yep.
Goosebumps, boy.
Yep.
Like, I gotta say that's probably like when we say something about watching, definitely had to say like that. That was like no lie. I really feel like that was like our Jordan Bulls. Like even
Mm-hmm.
though it was a short lived and they only won 2 championships, that was the team that was like even if you
You
didn't
had to
like them,
watch.
you had to watch them.
Yeah.
You had to watch them. They was must see TV.
Yeah.
Them boys was killers, man. And then anytime Brian got in that mode, like it was crazy. It was a good time to be there, man.
Yeah.
It was a good time for basketball, in my opinion. What about you?
Uh, it's a toss up between them and the KD Warriors. Like that was some
You
good
enjoy watching them?
basketball. Yeah, I'm probably in the minority on that one, but it was
Yeah.
just besides the level of dominance they had, it was just good basketball to watch, man. Like to see the selflessness that they had too. Like KD could have easily said, "I'm gonna put up 30 tonight. I'm gonna just ISO." I got Steph Curry on one side, Klay Thompson on the other side. You can't double me. Like you literally cannot double me. You're looking crazy trying to come off me in this double. So I could easily ISO, or just simply pull up over you whenever I wanted to and still drop 30. Steph could have said, I'm gonna drop 32. I got Clay on one side, Katie on the other side. I'm gonna drop 30 tonight, or 40, or 50. Easily could have did that. So
Right.
that team was fun to watch, man. Especially when they still had the comeback warriors too. It's like, man, it's third quarter, we down 20, 8 minute mark. Let's go ahead and turn it on now. The next thing you
I
know,
swear to God, boy. It was really like that though. They was
I
that
promise.
good. It was really like what time it is? 8 minutes left in the third. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get it started.
The
Four
next
quarter
thing you
start,
know,
they up two.
The next thing you know, man, ripping off. Wham, 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 wham. Three, three, three. KD, Clay, Steph, Draymond, Iggy, Sean Livingston. And just like, next thing you know,
What can you
timeout.
do?
All right, come back in again after timeout. Three, three, three. Alley oop from Draymond to Sean Livingston. Boom. Dang, another 15-0 run. Another timeout. Three, three, three. It's like you couldn't stop it, bro. It's just it was
Ever
dominant.
since series,
It was so dominant, man. It's just like it was fun to watch, bro. So it's a toss between now and like you said, the Heat, like I mean not the Heat, but the Heat, D Wade, LeBron years, that was probably fun. And I was probably the most interested in watching how the Brooklyn Nets would did last year. I was really interested to see how those three would have came together. Like,
I was interested in that too, just to see how they was gonna mesh.
yeah. And to see how it all turned out, well, part of how it turned out, I think that would have been the nastiest combo to watch. I think that
I
would have
just hate
turned out
we
to
ain't get
be
enough games of them being all healthy at the same time to really see what it's gonna be like. But they still was going crazy with James at the one and
yeah,
Kyrie like off the ball.
yeah,
They were still going crazy, but I just hate we ain't get to see enough of it really.
yeah. So if I had to pick one though, I'll say the Heat. That was probably my favorite to watch. Because like you said, that was for one, you still had I think that was probably the most dominant superstar team that we had, just because you had arguably two best players in the game on one team.
On the
Like
same team.
it's not just in my position, like, no, you have ranked the best players in the game. Top one and two are on the same team. Like besides the Warriors years, you probably couldn't say that about any other team. I'm not counting the Nets for this year just because we haven't seen them. But
Right.
name any other super team that we have on this list. You don't have one and two on the same team. Like LeBron eliminates the Warriors from being on that list just because LeBron, he's number one.
He's
So you
number
got
one
number
out the
two,
gate.
you got number two and three, maybe. Well,
It's KD and Steph.
yeah. So it's like I'm still probably taking D Wade over Steph as far as who was just like the guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to Steph, but it's just like, is Steph a better player? Yes, I would say that comfortably. Like, and I'm a D Wade guy, but as far as who was the man like during that time, when nobody touching Wade in '09, bro.
No,
Like, he was dominant, bro. He only thing was stopping him was injuries. That's the only thing stopping Wade at that time. Like, you couldn't guard him. and he didn't have a jumper for real. He still couldn't guard that man. So I just feel like the Heat during that time was probably the most fun for me to watch, man, just because they spin off a nice little 10-game winning streak out of nowhere. They cool off, lose a game here and there, another 11-game winning streak, and it's just fun to watch, man. Like you get highlights every single night, so you had to be glued on to see. Like, they have a running game in Milwaukee and just like go off on there. A running game in Sacramento and you see some highlights, and it's just like I want to watch that game, man. Dang, I ain't expect them to go off like that. Just random games
They
on the
going crazy
videos.
here,
They go
true.
crazy. Then now you gotta watch it because you never know when LeBron can go stupid with this move, with this dunk, and what alley oop they gonna throw tonight, and it's just fun to watch, man. So I think the Heat of that time was probably my favorite to watch, man. So man, that's some nostalgia right there, man. I got the goosebumps feeling coming back, man. That's
Man, like it was just a different time, but I just remember like sitting there on my couch, really real deal, like mad that they were winning, but I'm gonna watch the game. Like, and my brother loved LeBron. He a LeBron fan. Me and him used to be going at it. And then, man, them boys, in hindsight, boy, it was just great basketball. But I'm glad to have been around for it.
yeah,
Like, I really feel like that's our Jordan Bulls, like our best player of our generation on the best team in the league, dominating. And even though it was like short lived compared to Jordan's run, it just was one of the things like you had to be there for it. So
yeah,
that's all I can say about it.
yeah, man. So I think we can leave off on that note, man. Like we gotta learn to appreciate what we have in the moment because a lot of times a lot of times, probably every time, we always look back and like, man, I wish I could have appreciated that team and that era, or that player a little bit more, man. Like
Right.
we don't know, we never really know what we're witnessing. Like we said, we look back at the next team, it was like we think we're witnessing greatness, but it was just a subpar
It
team
was
that didn't deliver.
mediocre.
And we look back at the Warriors, we like, man, that's just a really good team, not knowing Steph Curry was going to be the Steph Curry we know now, man. So
Right.
we gotta learn to appreciate what we have in the moment. Like a lot of times, especially nowadays, we got trolls and everything. People just want to hate, and people are so just evil, bro. Like, why are people hating on certain stuff, man? But just learn to
Like,
appreciate the
bro,
greatness we have, man.
I promise you, when LeBron James is done playing the game of basketball, like the world will miss him.
People gonna be sick.
Like sick. Like I don't like people do not realize like how much we how much we just like not even acknowledge the greatness that he had or that he's been and given us over the years. Like he in year what this gonna be year 19 for
Yeah,
him? And like I just don't think people realize how rare it is that somebody be playing in the NBA not only 19 years, that's rare enough as it is.
hmm,
But to be playing in the NBA in 19 years and we still out here talking about is LeBron still the best player in the league or is it KD or is it Giannis? He's still in the mix.
yeah,
19 years in. And I don't think people realize that does not happen. Like never.
hmm.
Never has a player been in the league 19 years and we was like,
Not
is he
Jordan,
still top five?
not
Not
Kobe,
Mike.
not
No,
Kareem,
no
nobody,
Shaq. None of that.
nobody.
Vince Carter was in the league like 22 years. And the last 8 of his years, we never said, hey, Vince top 5 in the league right now. Like, I just don't think people know, bro. Like, and when LeBron done playing, like the world really gonna look around like, dang, we never gonna watch LeBron play basketball again. We
Yeah,
never gonna see the guy from Akron, the kid from Akron play again. And like the people that hated on him and stuff, it's okay not to like them. It's okay. I ain't saying you gotta love every player just because they're a great player. Because for a long time, I didn't like LeBron, like I said. But at the end of the day, you gotta appreciate greatness. And if you
yeah,
don't, when it's over, you gonna miss it. You gonna look back and you gonna realize, like, dang, this dude was really like the best of my generation, and I was spending my time on Twitter talking crazy about him. Like, man, let that be the nugget for the day. But
yeah.
just appreciate greatness while it's here, man. That's all I can say.
So yeah,
So, you got
like
anything else to say about it, man?
yeah, that's it, man. Like, yeah, we might dislike a super team, like you might dislike the KD Warriors, and you might dislike the Brooklyn Nets or Lakers now, but appreciate the greatness while we have it, man. Because
One day it's gonna be
especially,
gone.
especially like I think these two teams are a little special, at least for our generation, just because we're looking at Melo Like this the last few years of Melo, man. Like we're not gonna see Melo too much longer. He finna hang it up pretty
Right.
soon. Westbrook ain't finna
Especially if
be
they win this
Westbrook too.
ring. If they
Yeah,
win
he
this
might
ring, I'm more than fairly certain he's gonna be like, all right, that's it for me.
that
I'm
might be
good.
for him. Like Melo's special, man. Like he's probably one of the favorites from my generation of growing up watching. Um, Westbrook, that's my dog. Like he ain't finna be Westbrook too much longer. Like the generation that we love and adore right now, they're not finna be them too much longer. Like the Brooklyn Nets, Katie, Harden, and Kai, they're in their prime. Like we never seen a team assemble like this. So yeah, you might dislike the super teams, you might dislike this, that, and the third, but learn to sit back sometimes and just appreciate the great basketball that we're watching. Like we might never see something like this again. Like we never seen a team like the Bulls again. We've never seen a team like Kobe and Shaq Lakers. We never seen a team like the Spurs. We've never seen teams like the '80s, Celtics and Lakers. We never seen teams like this again. So I think we should sit back and learn to, whether you hated it, love it, in between. That's your favorite player. You can't stand his play, whatever. You dislike James Harden, how he plays. I don't care. Respect their greatness and what they're doing right now. Because at some point you're gonna look back and be like, man, I missed out on opportunity to appreciate their greatness while it was there because I was too busy in my feelings or I was too busy hating on that team or this player. So just sit back and learn to appreciate it regardless and be more receptive of the greatness that we have because it's not going to be there too much longer. So that's my last little nugget, man. Just sit back and be in the moment and appreciate the greatness that we have in front of us.
Facts, bro. I'm right there with you, man. But all right, that's it for us here at the BeBall Jones podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another one. This is a good one. I enjoyed it. I hope y'all enjoyed it at home as well. So y'all, make sure y'all like and subscribe and comment on here. Let us know who your favorite super teams were or who you hated, who your super teams are that you hated or just rooted against. Like I feel like a lot of our viewers are close to our age or maybe a little bit older. So y'all was around to see a lot of these super teams we were mentioning. So y'all just let us know which ones y'all hated, which ones y'all liked or appreciated, and join in the conversation. Don't let it end here. Continue it in the comments. We always in there checking y'all out. So just let us know. And make sure y'all tune in next week. I know y'all probably wondering what happened to the part 2 of Theo Rattler. We ready to hear more from Theo. Trust me, it's coming, it's in the works. But he a busy man, former NBA player. He got a lot of kids, a lot of kids. He got like 5, all by his wife. I don't want that stigma to get out there, but he got a couple kids. He running around a lot. So we try to be good stewards of his time, and we couldn't lock him down for a time this week. So just make sure y'all be ready for part 2 to drop, and just be with us for that one. And we'll make sure we get it announced before it actually comes out, so y'all can be ready. But yeah, that's it for us. Thank y'all for tuning in to another one. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at NellyH34 and go look me up on Facebook, Nelson Haskin on Facebook, where I try to continue the conversation on there. And then follow my guy Brian on everything at BeBall Jones. That's BE Ball Jones. Make sure y'all follow him on everything. We just keep the conversation going. We love talking to you guys, interacting with you guys, getting you guys' input, and continuing what we say on here with each other, with you guys listening. So make sure y'all do that. And that's it, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in to another one. And we out.